welcome to Red Ice Radio. My name is Henrik, and as you know, the website is redicecreations.com. It's great to have you with us today, as we are going to talk about an upcoming conference in the UK. We have Ian Crane with us, who is behind the Alternative View 2 conference. It takes place at the in London, in Heathrow, at the end of May. And for all of you who know, Heathrow is of course close to the airport. So for all of us who are coming from the continent, as it were, as the British would say, it's going to be really kind of convenient. We are going to be there at the conference, Red Ice. We're going to cover it in our own way, and of course we hope to see you there as well. And the website that you can go to right now is simply thealternativeview.co.uk. Here you can order tickets, look for more information, and of course read more about the guests. But what we're going to do here today is spend a little time talking about the guests that will be attending, some of the topics that they will be covering, and a little bit about the venue itself. So Ian, great to talk to you again. Thank you very much for coming on.
Hey, thanks for the invitation, Henrik. It's always a pleasure.
I just want to begin here to say that it's going to be a blast to get over again to the UK, visit London again. We were there about a year ago, in about a month's time. And I love these kinds of events. It's great to get some new information, as it were, new people, new material, and of course meet all the speakers, but also all the people that are attending. I think it's so much fun, and I think it's great that you guys are putting this together. So I'm really looking forward to it.
No, we're looking forward to meeting with you guys too, Henrik. And I mean, one of the objectives here is actually to provide an opportunity for people to meet up with like-minded people from, not just the UK, but hopefully from all over the world. I mean, if the first Alternative View event is anything to go by, which we held in the southwest of England last April, I mean, I think we had 14 nationalities represented at the event.
There you go. That's very good.
Hopefully, we'll have even more at this event, and with the dollar-pound exchange rate being rather different than it was a year ago, hopefully the event may also be attractive to some of our colleagues, from the United States.
There you go. Yeah. Very good. And again, as I mentioned, I mean, it's going to be very close to Heathrow, so it will be very easy to get there. And I think is it far from the airport? Or is this in the actual airport itself? Where is it?
It's literally right on the periphery of the airport. In fact, the hotel has a prime view right across from Terminal 5. So yeah, the access is real easy. If you're coming into Heathrow by car, then it's simply a question of coming down the motorway, down the M4, and it's only literally not even 5 minutes off the motorway. If you're coming by train or by plane, then obviously you head to Heathrow Central, and you pick up the bus, the hopper bus, which goes from all the terminals, and it just comes round to the hotel. I mean, you don't even need a cab. In fact, you definitely don't want a cab, because the cab drivers don't want the journey because it's too short. so you have to jump on the bus. Unfortunately, these buses do make a charge. It's a charge of just £4. But literally from the moment that you walk through customs, once you get on the bus, 10 minutes later you're at the hotel, and it's a really nice hotel. It is a superb facility. I mean, we have a capacity of 700. And we've only had the tickets on sale for 2 weeks, and almost 100 tickets have gone already.
So they're running fast. So
they are, yeah. I mean, we have block booked rooms at the hotel, because we do want to encourage people to stay at the hotel, because and like I said, we want people to network, we want people to hook up, we want relationships basically to go beyond just this event. And then we're not looking to form groups or organizations or anything like that. We're simply looking, to find or create a vehicle where people can come together and, share their own thoughts on what's occurring. Because, I mean, as we have discussed before, and I'm sure we'll discuss later, we are at a very, very interesting time in terms of our evolutionary process. And, there's a lot of stuff going on that actually needs to be discussed.
Yeah.
It's stuff that's not being discussed in the mainstream media. And that's why we call the events the Alternative View, because I can pretty much promise you that the information that is shared at the Alternative View, you're not going to hear it on the BBC.
That's absolutely right. And find the others, as Terence McKenna would say. That's what it's all about in a sense. And don't, stop caring about what all the closest people in that sense to you might believe or not believe in the things that you are interested in personally. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Again, there are people out there who are interested in what's really going on in the world. And again, these types of events are great to get some new contacts, meet some new friends, possibly, as it were, and just again, be in an environment like that with a lot of people around. It's going to be really great. And so why don't we talk a little bit about the main, obviously, where people might want to go there for, the speakers, the topics, as it were. You can give us a rundown of who will be attending, some of the names, and we can get into maybe a little bit of what we'll be addressing, as it were, Ian.
Sure. I mean, the reason that we have selected an event of this, a venue of this caliber, is so that we can attract sufficient people to be able to pay for very high caliber speakers. And our headline speaker is a guy called Dr. Leonard Horowitz. And Leonard Horowitz is a guy who, if people have heard of him, they've probably read everything he's written and probably seen all the DVDs that he's produced. Or they've never heard of him. I mean, there's almost no grey here. It's black or it's white. and Leonard Horowitz has never spoken in Europe before.
Really?
So, absolutely. It actually surprised me, I must confess, because I did actually check with him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, I've never actually had the opportunity to speak in Europe. So we said, well, okay, we have to make it worth everybody's while. So how about you give us 2 presentations? So over the course of the weekend, Dr. Horowitz will be giving 2 presentations. The first presentation, which he will give on the Saturday, is going to be really a summary of the work that led to the publication of his book, Death in the Air, Globalism, Terrorism and Toxic Warfare. And this is a book that he published in May of 2001. I mean, just 4 months before the events of 9/11.
Yeah.
And, anybody who reads that book will see that, Dr. Horowitz was very insightful. He really did have his finger on the pulse. And I know that he tried to meet with some Senate committees to discuss his concerns, because he was really concerned that the industrial military complex was building up to launch some kind of event to effectively gain greater control over initially the American people, and then obviously ultimately on a wider basis.
Yeah.
And he could not get the Senate committees to entertain his ideas. And of course, 4 months later, we have 9/11, and the rest, as they say, is history.
There you go. Yeah.
So he has a very interesting guy. I mean, earlier he'd written a book called Emerging Viruses, and he was looking at the biowarfare and the microbiology, and obviously he touched on the fact that many microbiologists had met rather untimely deaths.
Yes. That's a huge story, that one. Really, really interesting, and I think that I was following that during the time as well. And again, I don't know if that has continued or not, but again, I think that Horowitz did really, really interesting work and to track this down and what the potential reasons are. But yet again, I mean, Horowitz has really had the hand on the pulse, as it were, of the biomedical companies and their crimes against humanity, as it were.
Oh, without any shadow of doubt. And I think it does continue, Henrik, because, I mean, not least, of course, Dr. David Kelly was a microbiologist.
There you go, yeah.
I mean, he was a weapons inspector, but he was a microbiologist.
Yeah.
And then there are some unexplained aspects of a case that you may not be familiar with, but there were 2 young French students that were murdered in very strange circumstances in London I think it was about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it transpired that one of them had been working on bird flu.
Oh, I think I remember this, actually. I don't remember the details, but it rings a bell. It does.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, I mean, obviously, the media, the mainstream media, tried to very quickly hush it up and dismiss it as just some random killing in London, like they go on all the time. I mean, anyone would think it was LA. These things don't happen in London very often. But there's way more to this situation than meets the eye, and hopefully, at some point, a researcher will focus on just that issue and look beyond the veneer, as it were.
Yeah.
But Leonard Horowitz has been piecing the jigsaw together for many years, and one of his later works, which he will touch on in the Saturday presentation, is DNA: Pirates of the Sacred Spiral.
Yes.
And obviously what he's alluding to here is the pernicious agenda of the ruling elite in terms of trying to effectively create the transhuman. And Leonard Horowitz refers to the work of Zbigniew Brzezinski, who in 1970, when he wrote Between Two Ages, America's Role in the Technotronic Era, and in that book, written in 1969 and published in 1970, in that book, Brzezinski, who at the time was in his early 40s, actually makes the observation that the challenge for Western governments is going to be to find ways to keep man locked in materialistic consumerism and to stop man from finding his true self.
Yeah.
I mean, this is, again, remarkably, I wouldn't say prescient, because, Brzezinski was one of the scriptwriters.
Well, exactly, yeah.
But, Horowitz brings all this together and shows how it all fits into place. And he comes at it not as a researcher, which is the label that I would sort of flag up myself, but I mean, this guy comes at it as a scientist.
Yeah.
And so consequently, he cannot be dismissed. I mean, the mainstream media may try and dismiss him, but the reality is this guy's research is solid, and it demands really, sort of greater respect. Yeah. So I think, having Len as our headline speaker is a real coup.
Well, it's going to be great, and I think he's going to, set the overall tone as well for the conference, which at this point, when we look at some of the other speakers and talk more about them later on here, and some of the topics, of course, that they'll be addressing, we can see that it will be leaning towards a GMO, health, Codex Alimentarius, more of topics of those natures, right, Ian?
Yes, I would say that probably 30 to 40% of the presentations will err towards the issues of health, and the attacks on human health and the restrictions that are being put on people's choices when it comes to health.
Yeah.
And obviously, we've discussed before on a couple of occasions now the pernicious agenda of Codex Alimentarius.
Yes.
And a couple of the speakers who are very poignant on this area is Dr. Arpad Putztai, who actually came on board onto the speakers list just last week. And Arpad Putztai is a remarkable man. I mean, this is the guy who, in 1998, basically blew the whistle on the GM agenda. And he participated in a television documentary that was due to be broadcast on 10th of October of 1998. And in that documentary, he stated categorically that there was no way that he would ever eat genetically modified foods.
Mm-hmm.
And that observation was based on the research that he had been doing with genetically modified potatoes and using mice and rats, obviously, to determine the effects that the GM products would have on the metabolism of the rats and the mice.
Yes.
And basically, he was very, very concerned by what he found. And